Hey, hi Simar, how are you?
Hi, hi. Good. I'm good. How about you?
I am good, thank you. All right, just tell me something about yourself, brief explanation, and then we will start the technical discussion, okay?
Yeah. My name is Simarpal Singh. I have been working as a Salesforce developer from the last 4 years in a in High Tech Professionals Limited in Noida. So, in these 4 years, I have been working in Salesforce development, some administration work, and within development, various Apex classes or batch classes and triggers, lightning components, stuff like that. And also within administration work, some reports and dashboard work or permissions, and also integration work was also involved within these 4 years. Some SSO work or some integrations. This would be the overall summary of my 4 years, but in these 4 years there were some tasks that involved complex batch or complex uh, REST calls, I would say.
Okay. Can you tell me the most complex batch you have ever written?
So yeah, so this was complex to me as there was nothing more concrete to look upon. So there was a requirement to send out data to a third party system or external system from Salesforce, which involved sending data to a FTP server. So data from so what I did find on Google or on the net, that there is no direct connection to send data from FTP server to from Salesforce to FTP server. So we would need to have some kind of middleware or some middleware. And in this middleware we used a public middleware that would take data from our end and send out to a third party system when in provided the endpoint also. But again, in this particular case, the data would range from, so the data limit was all in all crossing once we gather data, the account data, because the again the synchronous limit was 6 MB, so we had to look for asynchronous. But then again, in asynchronous, when we created all the list, so this was to be sent in a Excel format. So we had to get data and create columns of it. And then after creating columns, we combined all the rows and then send out data in a blob format. So whenever we convert data from list to a blob, the I guess the data storage bumps from 33% or so. I'm not sure of it, but yeah, it does. So then again, we were hitting the apex limit. So we had to use a queuable class to achieve that.
What is the limit for the synchronous transaction for the maximum file size?
For asynchronous, I remember it was 6 MB, and then for asynchronous, it was 12 MB of data.
If if we have more than 12 MB of data, what will we do then?
I think we may have to divide the data in chunks so that it is sent over within the limits. That's what I can think of right now. Maybe there are some better ways to do it.
Have you ever heard of bulk API 2.0?
I have heard of the term, but not
Have you used it?
come across it or studied it. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Can we use the queuable as well as batchable interface, both the interfaces in a single batch class?
In a single class, we would write, yeah, we can separate the methods, right? Like the batchable would have start. execute, and then final. Can we use a queueable too? I think a separate class is should be there, because then again it would implement queueable. The class would implement queueable. A
Method,
separate class.
which method does the queueable interface has?
Uh, I'm sorry. Can you repeat?
Yeah, so in the batch epics, we have three methods: start, finish, and execute, right? Which
Yeah.
method does the queueable has?
Which methods? One is the same constructor, like the same class name, and I can't remember the exact name. I think it was Q again execute on the queueable end, but I'm not sure.
Okay. Why do we use interface at all? Like, what is the need of it? I can create a normal class with three methods: start, finish, and execute. And I can instruct all my developers in my organization to always use these three methods for this class. Why do we need to use interface at all? Like, what advantage I'm getting out of it?
Interface. So I just want some clarification here. Interface is what we actually do. We mean interface as a uh, property that we inherit from some other class, is, or like how we write implements something or implements.
But before that, tell me what is interface?
Yeah, that's what I'm not sure of.
Okay, okay, all right. We'll skip this for now.
Yeah.
Okay, how do we make constant? Do we have any const data type in Apex?
We have integer. I think no, not in Apex.
Don't we need constant in Apex?
Do we need that? Is that a question? Is that the question?
Is that a question? I mean, this is a question. Did you ever get a scenario where you needed to create a constant in any of your Apex class?
Yeah, uh, we can use the static n- uh, name instead of in front, or in front of the integer or any data type that we are trying to make as uh,
Can you tell me
constant.
what is this static keyword?
What is a static keyword?
Yes.
It would not let you change the properties of that or value of that particular method, or like the functioning of the method, or the property of the or value assigned to a particular property.
Okay. All right. No worries. That is final. That is final. And we use final along with static to make a particular variable as constant. Okay.
Yeah.
Can you tell me what are primitive data types in Apex?
uh, we have integer, we have string, we have
Not
boolean.
not the types, the definition. Why a particular data type is called primitive data type?
uh, why is a data type called? I'm not sure of the definition.
All right. If I ask you to write a SQL query to find out all the contacts which have never been modified, will you be able to write the query?
Which are never been modified, all
But
of the contacts.
yeah, all the contacts.
I think there is no direct query that can do that, but we can create a formula field which would let us know if some particular contact was modified from the date it was created. Like we can check the created date and last modified date. Based on a formula field, we can get a boolean value, and from that particular result from the formula, we can write a query like select ID name whatever from the contacts which have that particular field set as false or true, whatever we decide in the formula.
Okay, okay, okay. Got it. Have you worked on flows?
Yeah,
What type of flows you have worked on?
primarily screen flows, uh, and yes, and record triggered flow. Yeah,
What are the different types of flows? Like, are there other types of flows as well?
yeah, I know there are. So there are screen flows, there are record triggered flows, there are scheduled flows, and there is another category. I don't know if it falls under that. I think it would be again record trigger, like the platform event. Any platform event could also trigger the flow, but I think it would fall under record triggered, I believe.
How do you decide? Let's say you have to do a process automation. How do you decide whether you should go for trigger or flow?
If the requirement of, or if the logic that we need to write is a complex logic, or may require us to actually change or get something, get some indication from the data, like this is supposed to happen, and then we should do this. If that is not doable or easily doable within a flow, then we can use a trigger. Like if we are to send, just update some field on click off, or maybe updating some contact should also update the account, we can use a flow in that particular record triggered flow if it's a simple scenario.
Can you give me any example where you said, okay, you thought that you'll start with flow, but it was very complex and you needed to move to trigger. I want to understand a scenario. When we say it is very complex, then I will go for trigger. Like what complexity? Any scenario which you were not able to accomplish via flow.
Any particular scenario?
Just one, just one.
Yeah, there was. I'm now that I think of, maybe it would be possible via flows as well, because at that particular time I was not aware that flows could also, loop in, take data, process all the loops, and then give us a end record collection. But there was a requirement where we had to get all the, so there was a sum field or a counter on all the contacts. We had to get all the contacts total, and this was also based off different, like whatever registrations you have made, whatever membership you have, whatever donations you have made. So different, then again there were different related
Yeah,
lists.
but my point is, if this is achievable in the trigger, you have to do the same thing in the flow. It's just that the UI is different. If you are querying in Apex, you can query in flow. If you are assigning value in the Apex, you can assign the value in the flow. So in this example, there is nothing which cannot be done in the flow. There could be some knowledge gap, like I am not comfortable with flow, but that will not be counted as the valid answer. Okay. You'll have
Okay,
to be very
sure.
careful when you answer questions like this. Complexity is a very subjective thing. Okay.
Okay, yeah,
Somebody who is a very good admin will always do it via flow because flows are easy for them. Okay. But
yeah,
somebody, a developer will do it. So when we answer this question, we'll have to be very careful. We cannot pick the sides. We'll have to be very objectify that, okay, this is the reason or this was the scenario. If you explain it properly, he'll understand. But otherwise, he will drill you on these. Okay.
yeah, yeah.
All right. All right. Let's talk about LWC. Have you created Lightning Web Components?
Yeah, recently, yeah.
Okay. Can you explain the life cycle hook?
Yeah. Uh, So in a component or a Lightning Web component life cycle, there would be majorly three phases, like uh, the mounting phase where the component would be inserted in the DOM, the unmounting phase where the uh, component would be removed from the DOM, and then there's a error phase which would come up anytime there was any error in within these two phases. So within the mounting phase, we would have a constructor. All of these would be callbacks, like the mounting and unmounting, and then the error also. These would be callback methods. The constructor, the first callback that would be made would be a constructor callback. Within this, the properties of the component are initialized, and then the second one is a connected callback. So before the connected callback, the component is inserted within the DOM, uh, but not yet available for any. I think this should not be correct, but so then again, the connected callback would be the next callback, where in the properties of the component are initialized and set the values, and after that there's a rendered callback that would take place, and before rendered callback, if there's any child component, that so those for the child component, the constructor and connected callback, and then the rendered callback would take place, and then after those are done, then the parent component's rendered callback would take place, wherein it would re-render the data again on the component within the DOM. And after, so these would be the mounting phase, wherein the component is inserted and rendered on the DOM. After this, there would be, once we remove the component from the DOM, there would be, or once the component is removed, the disconnected callback takes place, wherein the component is removed from the DOM and then the disconnected callback takes place. If in any of these steps, like there is some error due to some any kind of error due to some syntax or anything, the error callback would take place, instead of, like, there could be an error between the constructor and the connected callback, the error callback would be fired and the others won't.
Hmm. Okay, can you tell me why we use constructor? Do we actually do anything inside the constructor? Most of the time, I've seen it empty or not written at all.
Why? So we actually won't have to do anything. So this is always going to be executed, no matter if we do write it, then we would again have to
Yeah, yeah,
uh,
that I understand. Have you ever written anything inside the constructor ever in any of your LWC?
not me personally, but I have seen some cases wherein they would uh, write some particular logic, maybe, uh, but yeah, not me,
Hmm.
not in my experience. I've done that.
Okay, all right. So let's say if there are three components A, B, and C, A is parent of B and B is parent of C, I want to communicate between A and C directly without involving B. How will I do that?
I think this would be a concept of event propagation, but I'm not familiar with it right now.
Hmm. Okay, all right, no problem. That's okay. If I ask you to reverse, let's say if I give you a string, okay, your name, and
Hmm.
I want you to write a function to reverse the name, like complete name, just reverse it completely. How will you approach it?
Uh, not that I've done it in I don't think so. I've done it ever, but I think we can use a loop, and from the index we can like first we would. Is it already divided like the name,
No,
or do
yeah,
we
yeah.
have?
It's divided. It's Simapal Singh. It is a string. Let's say just
Okay, it's already divided within. So each index would represent one word or one letter. Sorry, one
yeah.
letter.
There'll be gaps as well.
Okay. Yeah, I think we can probably we can do this via using a loop on the whole list, and then
But it is not a list. It is a string.
it is a string. I think I was thinking in the way like it would be a list, and then we can use a loop. But
You can convert the string to list first.
yeah, we would have to convert that, and then uh, depending on the length, like the last would be
Having a hand loop is not a big deal.
I'm sorry,
From string to list is the tricky part. Then
string.
having one list is not a tricky part. That is, you will put it in a list and
Yeah, I actually did not do this ever, so
that's what
that's why.
I'm just trying to play with you. Don't worry. Don't worry. Sometimes they ask in companies like Deloitte, KPMG, they sometimes do ask these kind of questions, reverse or pick the prime numbers from the list of numbers, all those things. Okay. So
Prime numbers, I think that thing I've done. So we can.
I'm not asking that. Don't worry. Don't answer that. I will not be asking that. Relax.
Okay.
Relax. Okay.
Yeah.
Just have you also done deployment?
Yeah, but only chain sets. I know there are other technologies as well, like the ENT migration tool, and there is uh, this Copado, and I think we can do this via VS Code as well using a metadata. But I have personally only used chain sets.
Okay. You have also written that you have mentored the junior developer.
Yeah.
How do you do that? Like how it happens in your company?
So in our organization, it would happen in our day-to-day activities, wherein they so anybody s- can be at a particular place, and they're not getting the particular logic, or they're not getting the particular solution for any
Help
problem.
them in your day-to-day job, right?
Yeah, yeah. In our day-to-day job, any activity you could come across where they're not able to think in that particular way on that particular day, maybe in that particular manner. There is
Conduct
this.
any trainings for them?
I'm sorry.
Did you also conduct any trainings for them? Like you?
No, 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 no.
Okay, okay, got it, got it. Why it is necessary to have a 75% code coverage? Why not 80? Why not 85?
I I'm not sure why it should be a higher number, but I'm not sure of the answer, the correct answer to this.
Have you ever used hierarchical custom setting in any of your project?
No, I have heard of it. Maybe I actually saw that, but
Hmm.
no, no.
All right. All right. I think that should be all. Do you have any question for me? And otherwise, I'll open it for the feedback and I'll stop the recording. Okay. Let me stop it.
Yeah.
Ask question.